Hello. Welcome back from lunch, during lunch, continue lunch. I'm going to continue lunch in a minute, but we have something even better than lunch right now. So we do have a keynote speaker, not just a keynote speaker, but also a patron, a silver patron here for the conference, and we really appreciate Darren and his company for doing this. The keynote luncheon is about the role of AI in social media. Our speaker and our silver patron is Darren Culbreath. He's a multi-faceted technologist with a proven track record as a full stack engineer, big data architect, enterprise business technical problem solver. He's an entrepreneur, a marketing technology innovator, patent holder, pioneer in the social listening space. He lives in the Washington, D.C. metro area, and we're really fortunate to have him here at this symposium. And most importantly, in addition to everything else, he's our keynote speaker now. So, Darren, you're on.
He got the wrong guy. He got the wrong bio. Thank you for having me. I was critically listening to all of the great speakers earlier today, and I kind of wanted to start off with thank you. You've given me a lot of ideas. I've got a billion questions for you, so please don't leave immediately. But I just kind of wanted to start off by telling a small story on how I got in trouble. Can you guys hear me? Okay, all right. Sound, getting closer. And so I got really busy about 5 years ago at my previous employer. And I got so busy that my social media ranking, what I felt like it was my ranking was going down, my influence was going down. That was very important to me at that moment. Don't know why it was so important to me, but it was important to me. It was so important to me that I decided I was going to create a bot. And this bot that I created was going to be me when I'm not me. And what I meant by that is I created a bot that was going to listen to some feeds, and I was going to post immediately online. And I did this for a while, and people were like, wow, this guy's like tweeting like 100 times a day. He's doing magic. What's going on? And as I was doing this, I had the whole infrastructure down. I'm a developer. I knew what I was doing, and I just took the code way to do it. And I started getting these emails from miscellaneous friends I haven't heard from in a while. And they would say, why are you posting about this stuff? What's going on? And oh, what's the matter? I'm just posting about technology. But inside the article, it might have been something controversial, and so on and so on. I pulled it down and said maybe I have to tweak it a little bit. And so I got smart and I said I'm going to make sentiment analysis. I was going to say if it's negative, then I'll post it. I won't post it. If it's positive, I'll post it. Then I got me into more trouble, and I would get personal. People would follow me, and then they would like direct message me and say, why are you keep spreading this thing about me? And apparently someone was in a legal problem. And I'm spreading news about that. So when we talk about privacy and social media, I really think it really comes down to the shareable objects. The things that we share can be damaging if we don't really understand what we're actually sharing. So I took a pause and I stopped, turned it off, and after many followers and many engagements that I received, I turned it off and I said, you know what? And I can't remember the privacy code speaker that was here earlier, but she said something very interesting to me. She said, not to me, but to us, and she said, if you don't like it, build it. And so that's exactly what I did. I took a step back. I'm a songwriter, by the way. Has nothing to do with social media, but I'm a songwriter. And I had a songwriting coach told me, Darren, just be brave. And so I said, okay, fine. I'll keep that phrase with me. So I got a little brave, and I said, if I'm going to build something better than what I had, there are some things I didn't understand. I didn't understand AI as much as I possibly should have. I didn't understand the modeling side of the world. But I wanted to build something that was like responsible and and didn't share bad things, but was very conscious about what it was going to do if it was going to be in an automated form. So I had to do some reading, had to do some research, and I needed help. And so in order for me to get help, I needed to contract help. So I was like, what would be a cool company name to help me drive some people in for my little mission? Hopefully never asked me what my business model was, because I didn't have one. So I created the Prototype Company. And because I wanted to create some prototypes centered around trying to solve a problem of where bots get this negative term, and they get this negative context, and it's real because they don't really think. How can I create a more thinking, a more responsibly conscious piece of automation? So I went down this journey. And as I went down this journey, I started doing research, and I was able to come across a TED Talk in 2020 with Genevieve Bell. And she mentioned 6 powerful ethical questions for AI that you need to ask. And it had to do with, is the AI autonomous? Does it run on its own? Does it have agency? Are there controls around it? Is there assurance? What are the legal implications of it? Does it have a sense of integration? Like, how do you integrate with it? How do you interface with it? And as I started to read and more and more about this kind of framework, I realized I wasn't thinking about this when I was building it at that point. Yeah, I was just building stuff. So I took all my code, I kept it in GitHub, well, my private repo. I started from scratch and said, how would I build something that would not be sharing so much bad stuff? So I promised myself I'll make this interactive. You guys ready to raise some hands? All right, not yet. That was good. That was very good, Pat. Your arm works right on. So, show of hands. How many of you have ever shared an article online? Okay, I would say that's about 90% of the room. Okay. Now, intellectual honesty. Had a ex-VP used to tell me this. He ran sales. He says, Darren, just be intellectually honest with me. Are we going to make the numbers or not? And I'm like, okay, maybe we won't make them, fine. And so intellectual honesty. Of the folks that raised your hands, how many of you actually read the full article before you share it? Okay, I've got, I think now I probably got, instead of 90%, maybe that was like 55%. And so half the time. So it's even different than what I was expecting. So that was me. I probably didn't read it all. I'd read a little bit of it, and hence what got me into my problems. And I think just not robots, but even humans, we have this issue that if it's an article that we think we understand, we read it a little bit, we share, but in the details, those details could be something that's toxic. It could be something that's an attack on a person or a company. It could be those kinds of things. So I wanted to build something that was a little bit more cautious about that. And that's when this journey started to happen. And so, by the way, I'm the person that names their bots, okay? I have a bot named Jenny. I have a bot named Mike. I have a bot named Daryl. I've got different bots that do different things. And so I'll talk about Jenny today. So on my quest to build Jenny, I wanted to make sure that if I was going to build an autonomous bot that I can turn off and I can control, that she could possibly do it better than me. And what do I mean by better than me? Maybe she can read an article faster, better, and be able to understand what was about to be shared. Maybe she can optimize it to the point where it can be seen by the right individuals. Maybe she could do these kinds of things. And so I put a bunch of my maybe requirements, and I started to build. And as I started to build and started beta test, I'd call some of my influential friends. I know an individual, he's a mayor of a city. And I said, hey, would you let Jenny, tweet automatically for you? He said, Darren, yeah, sure, why not? And then she started tweeting for him. And shortly afterwards, it took about a week for him to say, stop her. She wasn't perfect at all. And so, during these micro tests, I started to learn a little bit about this. But then I started to understand even more, uncovering more and more of the problems. The problems is, just because it's a sanctioned website, let's call it a news site, doesn't necessarily mean they're even sending things that are either accurate or even sensitive to others. They're just trying to get eyeballs, basically, on their news, and you're just helping them out. And so, fast forward, during lots of trial and error, I think I built Jenny to the point where Jenny can actually perform such tasks. And I've got many results that shows that she can pick and choose the right kind of content. But as I was coming here today, the big challenge it comes back down to when you build an AI to be as autonomous as she does, and she can be your AI assistant, I start to think about the future. So I believe in the future, AIs are going to be our partners. And what do I mean by that? I mean partners in the sense that if you have a resume, on your skills, you would put skill 1, skill 2, skill 3, and then skill 4 would possibly be your AI. That's how I think the future is going to be. I might be wrong. I can't predict everything, obviously. But if that is the case, what starts that future? And I think what starts that future is tools like this, where you start to trust the AI to do the job, but then bigger questions come up. And so this is where I need your help. I've had lawyers tinker around with terms of use of such a product that can be autonomous and kind of be you when you're not you. But the issue is, if something goes wrong, who's at fault? Is it the software developer? Is it you because you've licensed it? Who do you think would be at fault? And so as I had these terms of use reviewed and looked over and so on, I realized that they don't make a whole lot of sense to me. I don't really understand them. It's just, and I think, I'm sorry, your name back there? Yes, Denise. She said, buyer beware. You did say that, right? My terms of use is definitely buyer beware. It literally says you are responsible for anything that Jenny does because you agreed. Takes me away from the problem, right? But so I'm trying to understand what is the right place. You have something that's autonomous and it's AI, and AI is totally in social media today. What are the right mechanisms to protect the user of the AI, or who is ultimately responsible for what the AI does? Because AI will be in social media. It's there today, even though lots of folks don't want to admit it. It's there today. And what are the implications? So who are the lawyers in the room? A privacy counselor, you're not a lawyer, you're the individual that ticks lawyers off because you're a privacy counselor. Let me ask you the question, and I'm going to come to you, if that's okay, after you're done chewing. Okay, because it is lunch. Who do you think is responsible if the AI sends out a comment, and the comment is, let's say, liable? Who's responsible? The person who is licensed for the AI, the software developer who created it? Who do you think?
I'm a privacy consultant, so I'll say it depends.
Here comes the rate. The rate's going up.
I was thinking about the I was thinking about the question when you said it, and from what I know of AI, I often argue by analogy. So if an AI is a tool, when you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, and you buy a tool, and it operates the way you expect it to. So, okay, and I misuse the tool, that's on me. If I operate the tool the way it's supposed to be operated, and it blows up, that's on the person that sold me the tool. So an AI if it tweets out something racist, misogynistic, inflammatory, libelous, scandalous, but its learning set is my prior tweets, and it's some judge looks at it and says, yeah, you might have done that, that's on me. But if the learning set doesn't include that, then it's on you.
Fair enough. Thank you. You gonna send me a bill? Yeah, bottom lunch. So you know, these are the kinds of things. And so when we say AIs and social media, when you see enterprise applications and enterprise feeds, there's a lot of thought process that goes into the hashtags that are used. There's a lot. And so as these technologies mature, we definitely need to have these control mechanisms around. And so as it stands now, Jenny is in a beta, or I should call it an alpha stage, where I've got some choice individuals that are testing this out at scale. And you know, now I have another question. Who in the room, somebody raise their hand and say they're very bullish about this, very uncomfortable about an AI representing you. And bearish. Bearish. All right, righty. Well, the question here is, would you let an AI represent you publicly? Right? And I'm curious to know why, in this day and age of all technology in a room full of great engineering minds, why would you not trust the technology to represent you? Alan.
Because I know if I built it, it would do bad things that I wouldn't do myself.
Alan, I got to ask you a question. Why would you build Jenny to do bad things?
Because of unintended consequences.
Unintended. Yes, we learned that in comp sci. Absolutely. Unintended consequences. That is exactly right.
First of all, thank you for raising this. It's not something I ever thought about, and it's really intriguing. I'm thinking in two dimensions, myself and then people in the public domain. How much more Donald Trump's political futures would have been built if in stack everything that he said to the world was filtered through an AI engine to, you know, basically clean it up. Yeah, and for me, I think I'd be happy maybe for the same reason, because sometimes I'm impulsive about what I say and maybe don't articulate it well. So, you know, if it's well designed in the sense that it is representative of my thoughts, I'd be very happy having everything that I think that I want to say to the world filtered through something that's able to do a better job of filtering it than my brain does.
All righty. Well, thank you, Stuart. And, okay, we got over here. Excuse me.
Would it be protected?
Protected.
Yeah, if your speech is not protected, what good is your speech? If your robot is speaking on your behalf, it's commercial speech. You don't have free speech. So that's one issue that will come up, authenticity.
All righty. Hey, Greg. Greg, right? Yeah. Greg, okay, yes? I want to address that. Go ahead.
Despite, I mean, we are engineers designing and doing programming in AI, but we don't have to trust AI too much because there is no standards so far regulating AI, and this is very dangerous.
Yes. Let's address it. So, Greg, what if I told you that Jenny had a natural language generation engine that had a template of your tone that was able to reshape and rephrase messages that came through feeds and was able to sound similar to how you sound? Would you be okay with that?
There's still the issue of your liability. People who speak that's not protected are liable for what they say.
Very much so.
Just ask the schmo Alex Jones. So if your AI turns into Alex Jones, you're paying.
Right on. That's very good. Thanks for that.
So I feel like your question is framing it as a hypothetical, would I let AI represent me? But I feel like for all of us who are findable on the internet or on social media, we're already being represented in that way. Like I have a limited set of choices of how I can represent myself on LinkedIn. I have a limited set of choices of how I can represent myself in various forms that other people have made decisions about that for me. Now, we can say it's, you know, sort of an open canvas, I can personalize it, et cetera, but there's still some parts of me, like my profile in one place or another represents a different me because of the way that the platform itself is constructed and what it's trying to promote. You do a Google search of my name, that's not my choice about the ranking of what you see there unless I'm paying someone to optimize, you know, the search engine. Right, like a bot. So I guess I'm saying, I'm just taking a little bit more meta, not in the sense of the company, but really like our lives and the ways that we're represented to each other are already shaped by these systems.
Exactly. They are. So, you know, those parts are super hard to control. And so my proposal here is that if you did have a sense of control, and I won't get, well, we're all engineers. I'll get into some of the technicalities of it. I mentioned a natural language generation engine. I must have reviewed every one that I could possibly buy. Some names you know, narrative science. I can keep going. And none of them satisfied Genevieve Bell's ethical AIs. Maybe they do in certain ways, but they didn't. And so I figured, you know, I'll take a shot. I read every scholarly article I could find on the topic. And so I created a natural language generation just for this bot. Do you have a question?
I think that a robot in China, when it was playing with a kid, it was playing chess, and then it just caught hold of the child's hand when it was playing halfway through, and then pressed it so hard that it broke the child's finger. So now, if it's a robot which has been trained to play chess, it could not recognize whether it was chess piece or a finger. There is a huge difference between a chess piece and a finger. So now this begs the question, as you asked, who is at fault here? Because the training would have been done based on images, which were all chess pieces. So despite all that could happen, I think when intelligence is artificial, it can screw up things all the time. Even we with natural intelligence, we do lousy things. So why do we expect the machines to be super, super intelligent when a normal intelligent man is building that machine? So I think it begs the question, I always ask this question, what is learning here? So just showing an apple, half-eaten apple, quarter apple, different kinds of apple, is this how we learn? Absolutely not. So the paradigm of learning that which we have embraced at this point in time, in my mind, is totally wrong. And till we get that part right, which I think this will continue, I think.
Need to have a strong conversation with this guy, Pat. We had this conversation 2 days ago. I lost the battle, by the way. He's got some very interesting points on it, but I totally agree with you that, you know, the learning piece is something that we definitely have to understand. So I know a lot of small business owners, medium-sized business owners, and I tinkered this idea around them. None of them had any of these ethical questions. You know what their question was? Darren, when can I get it? That's all they wanted to know. When can I get it? Because they're super busy, and they're like, hey, I just want to be relevant. They didn't even think twice. And I was like, okay, you know, down to your consequence question, Alan. What happens? What happens when you release something like this? I don't even know if it should be released to the general public or not. But at the same time, you know, I'm a builder, and so I kind of figured, you know, I built it now. Now I'll take it one step further. And so I think social media, and just to give you a small history, I created the first social media search engine. It was a long time ago, not really that long time. It goes around 2006, 2007. It indexed content the other major search engines did not index at the time. And until the social media sites started to make it commerce-based to get the free comments. I indexed about 1 billion comments a month. And, you know, from there was so much bad stuff that we saw in these comments. It was just terrible. And we can just like see trails of arguments hopping over networks where people are fighting over networks. So the consequences are real. But, you know, when it comes to the privacy piece, the problem with the sharing piece is, there's another story about another individual. It was a news story, and on the newscaster, this has happened to us. The newscaster talked about a disease that this person had online, and it made the papers. And I was working for a client years ago that wanted me to amplify the social media. It caught on to the news, and it amplified the social media to the point where it got several 100,000 views. Think about the problem. And so now, so now the problem is, you know, just because we can, should we? And so sharing is a big deal for privacy. Now that person's privacy information just got amplified. So those are the unintended consequences. But, you know, but now that this is built, now the big question here is, what controls can we put, if it's an IEEE or if it's whatever agency, what kind of controls need to be written? Because these apps are being written right now. And just as I mentioned by my other friends who run these companies, they're not asking these big ethical questions. They just want the tech.
And the experience from market demand of small to medium-sized business, and you've done some ecosystem landscape mapping of controls. But surely you might have some experience elsewhere that should help you answer the question. The big companies do much more than you're doing, right? I wonder, do you feel that this is the problem space of the small companies, or you believe that there might be the opportunity for this experience to be common across a broader ecosystem? Feel free to say.
Pat's goading me right now. He's like, Darren, tell the truth. All right, so here's the deal. All righty. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Big companies do have this problem. And they, like, for example, if you are a large chain, for example, we'll just use that as an example. You have the hospitality industry is all based on positive reviews. You know, that's how they're incentivized, and spreading the word around is real. And so companies like that have hired me in the past to say, hey, by the way, spread the word. And but each time I did not have that notion of that technology piece to dive deep in. And so it's not just the small businesses, it's the multi-billion-dollar businesses who are hiring folks to do this. And for us to amplify, we are using natural language processing, we are using AI, we are using the tools in order to spread. So, I just wanted to make sure people understood this is a problem at scale. Right. This isn't an individual problem. That's not. It's a big problem. Was that a hand raise?
She complained quietly in her neighborhood about something, her privacy was being invaded in her Malibu home or something like that. And because it was Barbara Streisand, 100,000 retweets later, and her small complaint backfired and it became the center. She lost all the privacy that she'd been complaining to your neighbor, please don't look over my fence. and the neighbor retweets it, and all of a sudden, everybody's looking over her fence, right? Right? It's the Streisand effect. The thing by complaining about the thing, you make the thing worse. So if you're doing sentiment analysis and somebody's saying, I don't really feel like I want this to go wide, but just with my friends in the neighborhood, I want to share this, and then it blows up, right? Your good intention to share this actually ruins the person who you amplified it for.
You're going to have to bill me now. The answer is you can't. Not today. Now, I don't know of a way to do that. Part of this exercise was, or who should you allow to use it, right? And what types of comments should it? What types of feeds should it utilize? I spent a lot of time working with models that can prevent hate speech, for example, and attacks on character. It's not perfect, but it does work pretty well. I just want to talk to you guys about these applications. These applications are real, they're happening. It's good, and as I hear all about the different social media and privacy pieces, the AIs and the bots are very big social media users today. And they spread a lot of privacy information, and they do break down some of the systems that we think that we have in place. And I was on a plane coming here today, speaking with an individual who works for a government system integrator. He says one of the biggest problems that they're trying to face today is the misinformation. And they're not doing very well in detecting bot-generated content. So, you know, when you think about that, hey, this is like round two, round three? Right on. Hey, thank you all for entertaining this. Hopefully we can connect later in our worlds, in our universe. I think it's a real issue to sort of like conquer, and it'll definitely be very helpful. Have a good day.
Well, thank you, Darren. You certainly raised some things that I haven't talked about. Probably a lot of people in the room have thought about it, but as you were just generalizing the whole topic of, I'll kind of summarize it as, what do you do when AI misbehaves? I'm thinking about self-driving cars and, and I was at a restaurant the other day where there was a robot to serve the food, and I just imagined what would happen if it didn't stop where it was supposed to, or didn't put it where it was. My mind is spinning around. But I certainly can imagine the application for a personal assistant, I'll call it that, which can speak either on behalf of me or everything else, and tremendous value to a politician who has deniability. And that was the machine misbehaving. I didn't really mean that, so there's a whole new set of implications in the world. What's that? Oh, all right. So the schedule actually calls for us to pick up the next talk at 1:45, which I think was meant to give people an opportunity to take a break. But I don't know. Let me just, by a show of hands, how many people would like to take 5 minutes? But you got to be back here in 10. People want to take 5? Just continue. What do you think, Wahab? Just continue? All right. I'm gonna continue then. This is an executive decision by the president of the society. I am actually the surrogate here for our executive chair, Katina Michael, who is online, and she has